Welcome to What Not to Do. I'm Kyle Schmidt, and this is episode 16. I've got Chris Burns with me here. He's part of leadership at BConnected, owns a couple of successful businesses, and parlayed his love for golf into life lessons in his first book. But on his road to success, he's ran into a few failures, and not to mention energy zombies. Stay tuned. We'll be right back. All right. So, Cop Rock off Ballard Avenue in Appleton. I'm with Chris Burns. Chris, man, you own a couple businesses. You've written a book. You're a marketing guy. You hail from the area.
Yep.
Welcome.
Well, thanks for having me. Appreciate it.
What are you drinking?
I'm drinking a latte, vanilla latte. My go-to.
Nice. I'm rocking the Breve latte, which is great.
What's in a Breve?
It's half and half.
Oh.
Yeah, so it just makes it a little bit creamier. You know, keeps the beer thick with all the extra fat. So.
All right.
And if you don't know Chris, Chris and I are both rocking pretty nice beers, which is great. So.
Yeah, yours is better.
Yeah. Well, no, yours looks mighty fine, if I do say so myself. But I'm happily married, so.
Thanks. Yeah, same. Let's keep some boundaries here.
Well, man, I'm sure there's a handful of folks out there who know you well, but I'm going to guess that there's a lot of folks that don't. So, Man, just tell me a little bit about yourself, who you are, what you love to do, and who's Chris?
Cool. Well, I'm 38. I like long walks on the beach. No, kidding. In all seriousness, I am 38. I work for BConnected, local social media company during the day, but a lot of people know me as Chris, who owns the Social Station, which is a big party bike that operates downtown Appleton, also known as a pedal pub. Been doing that now for 3 years. And then last year, with some friends, started a telematics business, which is called Northern Fleet Solutions. So they're selling GPS and telematics devices to companies that own fleets of vehicles or trucks.
What is telematics?
Telematics would be basically a GPS tracking device, or also known as an e-log for those vehicles that are considered more semi-trucks.
Yep.
And telematics help companies keep their vehicles and their equipment safe or protected. So you can track your assets. For example, if you had a GPS device in your company vehicle, it would give you reports that let you know whether or not your employees are driving safe, if one of your vehicles or assets has left a service area, whether or not your staff is using seatbelts. So there's a safety factor. There's a lot of data. Yeah, and really it's about building efficiency and profitability for companies. It's not about spying on people, which is the first thing people think of when we talk about telematics. But what's interesting about that is, according to the state or government, reports are saying that telematics are going to be required by state or government within the next year or two. So it's a big industry already with big players like Sprint and Verizon, but it's going to be even bigger in the next few years.
That's so interesting. That's awesome. So, well, continue on. Yeah.
And then also published author, wrote my first book last year that is available as a paperback and an ebook on Amazon.
What's it about?
It's called King of the Mental Swing, How to Win at Golf and Life by Thinking Differently.
Nice.
And so, interesting, long story on that, but think of it as a recipe book for how to be successful at life.
Yeah.
So
awesome.
Much like golf, as in business, you talk to 100 different people, which you probably have already. They're each going to give you a different recipe as to how they became successful, what they did to get success and earn that. And that's really how life should be, is like a recipe book. And it depends on how hard you're going to work, how much time you have, how much risk you want to take, how much money you want to invest. And so I created that book as a way for people to say, okay, this is what I have from a skill set. This is where I'm efficient. This is where I'm proficient, or deficient in that case. And I want them to be able to create a plan for success. And for some people, it's really just about mindset.
Yeah.
Other people, it's about attitude, execution, you name it. And I really started it as being a golf book, but then realized, I was going to read a book about golf. I wanted this to be transferable skills that you could apply to anything in life, from bowling to being a better father, husband, better employee, better friend. And I could go on, but this podcast would be more like 2 hours if I did that.
Well, I know where we can find some more coffee. So, but that's awesome. So we'll have the link to the book in the show notes here. So pick it up if that interests you, and it should. But it also reminds me that you are yourself a golfer. You're not just writing a book about golf or using golf as a parable. You enjoy golf yourself, right?
Yeah.
Talk to us about that.
Played for the majority of my life.
Yeah.
Also, in a previous life, was a collegiate golf coach at Lawrence University for 6 years. Worked in the golf business for a while,
Nice.
and wanted to use my passion and my knowledge to help people. Because genuinely, I've always enjoyed teaching, helping, coaching others, and just basically giving back.
Yeah. That's so cool. And what a fun way to be able to do that. And then you're even doing that, with your book, right? I mean, being able to take something that you love and you're passionate about, and like you said, parlaying all the principles and skills you learned in golf into life, and helping to instill those for folks that, whether, like you said, bowling, fatherhood, whatever it might be, help others be successful.
Yeah, golf into life and life into golf.
I love it, man. That's awesome. Well, so talk to us a little bit about, you mentioned that you're doing a handful of different things now, but talk to us a little bit more, kind of what you do specifically, kind of feel free to get into a little bit more, and also help us to give a little bit of time of how you got to where you are today. So we were talking, I think, off air. You're from the area. You went to school out in Michigan. Maybe kind of pick up from there, studying marketing in Michigan, and kind of take us on that journey of how you got to where you are today.
Yeah, I'd love to. So I think the story for me starts back in high school. I was a junior and looking for things to fill my schedule. And of course, like most teenage boys, it's, less algebra, less science, and more of the fun stuff, the slacker classes.
AKA girls. Or the slacker classes.
Yeah, that too, in addition to sports. And so, I started wanting to take things like screen printing, business law, DECA, and that's really what springboarded me into wanting to study marketing in college.
Yeah.
And DECA was probably it for me. And I competed in some of the local competitions, did well, and then decided after that, my senior year, that I wanted to go to school for marketing.
Yeah.
And so since then, I've always kind of worked in and around marketing. Everything I've done has been related to marketing and or sales.
Yeah.
One or the other or both. And that every job I've had since then has been in marketing. And kind of what changed after that was in college. I joined Facebook in 2004, back when you were required to have a .edu email address. And it wasn't more than about a year or two after we started to see businesses create a presence on social media, and that's when social media marketing became a thing. And that is when, I kind of knew this was something I want to do, is not just work in marketing, but work in digital marketing.
Yeah.
And
to pause there, for some of our younger listeners, there was a point in time when Facebook did not exist.
Yes.
And when the majority of the world was not on Facebook or social media at all.
Yeah. Very, very true.
Yeah, continue on.
From there, it wasn't long after that I knew I wanted to be an entrepreneur. I always kind of knew that I wanted to do something, and always had these grandiose plans that I'd be a millionaire by the time I'm 38, which I'm not, by the way.
Let's change that.
Yeah, of course, absolutely.
Buy his book. Come on.
But I've taken a stab at many businesses since then.
Yeah.
A few of them have crashed and burned up until the most recent, probably last decade, where I found success.
Yeah. That's awesome. And so talk to us then about what you're doing now, what you found. What are you doing now that has been successful for you? Talk to us about a little bit of that.
Yeah, so...
A couple different businesses, a couple different things that you're doing right
absolutely.
now.
Absolutely. So I started working at BConnected a little over 3 years ago, and that to me has been...
Did you start BConnected, or was it already existing?
I did not,
okay.
No. But that to me was a bit of a springboard working in the digital marketing, particularly social media space. And the business that I most recently started, my first successful business venture, was the Social Station, the party bike that I mentioned.
Yeah.
And I knew that going into that, I was going to be able to build success off the back of social media. People were going to find out, learn about the business, and they could see themselves doing it through digital marketing, particularly social. And that, to me, working in the social media space, particularly locally, has been a great springboard that has allowed me to use news and continue to learn and stay on the cutting edge of what's happening with social and digital, and be able to continue to create a strong presence personally and professionally in the community. And with my success, both professionally at my day job and through the social station, it's brought on a lot more opportunities. And since then, I've started my Northern Fleet Solutions, which is the telematics business. And I've learned a lot in the journey, and I find myself continually being hungrier and hungrier and wanting to do more and more with more and more limited amount of time. Obviously, having children, you being married, you know how that goes.
Yeah, oh yeah. So, the pedal pub and telematics are two very different industries.
They are.
Is that safe to say?
Safe to say.
So what was the connection? How did you go from pedal pub to telematics and transportation, analytics and data, if you will, I guess?
Yeah, well, that's a good question. I got into the pedal pub party bike business years ago because I have a friend in Detroit who did it, who got into the business of the industry before me, and he kept talking about how great it was and how it was profitable, and it was a great opportunity, and that it was going to continue to grow. And I knew that we didn't have anything like that in Northeast Wisconsin. What's interesting about the whole story was I was actually working in Green Bay at the time, sitting in a leadership Green Bay event, and they were talking about, the people conducting the day were talking about how people are leaving their small communities like Green Bay and Fox Cities and Oshkosh. They're moving to larger cities like Nashville, Las Vegas, and Houston. And I thought, well, why are they leaving? And they said, well, the complaint from millennials and young people is that there's nothing to do here. And it kind of struck me. I had this seed planted in the back of my mind that this would be a cool thing to do. But cool things to do are not profitable things to do, necessarily.
Not always.
And
right?
Cool things to do aren't necessarily great businesses, right? It's not just about profitability, it's about adding value to the city.
Right.
And so they started talking about the things that millennials wanted that weren't here in our communities. And it immediately struck me that, yeah, younger people do want fun things to do, whether it involves alcohol or not, and they want to be outdoors. And what are the amenities that some of these bigger cities have that are seeing this influx of young people, young professionals, that we don't have in our communities? And so immediately this struck me as a great business opportunity that I can bring value to this great community that we have here in Appleton, and give us one more thing to do in what I think is a tremendous downtown. So my friend Nick really inspired me to do it and kind of laid the foundation for the business. And of course, my wonderful wife, before I was allowed to do it, pushed me really hard to do a ton of research, and really it's about a little over a year that we investigated and looked into research and data, and talking to manufacturers and talking to consumers in the market, to determine whether or not this would be a successful venture. And it has been so far, which is great.
That's awesome.
How that translated into telematics, there's really no connection there, but that's okay. I've always had this idea that I would have a portfolio of businesses someday that would all be related and could all kind of support each other in this one ecosystem, but that's not how it works, right? We don't live in a perfect world. But I had a friend approach me who's been in the space for many years, who was in a way kind of independent, and said, hey, I want to break off from what I'm doing, and I foresee this as being a multi-million-dollar business for myself, or potentially a lot more if I had some partners. And talked about it for probably 6 to 9 months, and finally he came to me and said, hey, I really want to do this. I'm serious about it. So again, a lot of months and time into investigation and conversations with my wife and other people determined that, there really is a ton of opportunity, and we can provide companies a lot of value. So it's not necessarily about how much money can I make. It is, can we really change businesses? Can we help them build efficiency and profitability? And I feel like if you can provide value and create value for people, then that is one of many signs that you have a good business model.
Yeah. That's so cool. So it's
you had success in the first business. And for those who don't know, what is a pedal pub?
Well, we call it a party bike. Pedal Pub is a trademark name used by another company, which we can still use, but I can't use in marketing. And it's basically a 15-person bicycle. It looks and is shaped more like the size of a truck, but anywhere from 5 to 6 people sit on each side, and a few people sit in the back bench. And it is a pedal-powered vehicle, or as the city calls it, a quadricycle, that is steered and directed by a paid employee or a tour guide that takes you around downtown Appleton in this case. And we do different themed tours like pub crawls, because let's face it, most people want to drink. Right. We do exercise expeditions, and then to be more family and kid friendly, we offer coffee and scenic tours, where we go to places like coffee shops, boutiques, candy shop, parks, play games, do photo scavenger hunts, and all kinds of cool stuff.
That's fun. So do you actually serve alcohol or drinks on the pedal bike?
We do not serve. That we're governed by state law, which is probably a good thing. So people can bring, by state law, up to 3 alcoholic beverages per person, if they so choose. Or they can bring snacks and water.
Now, I gotta imagine not everyone's carrying their weight when they come out.
Is that true? Yeah, we have a slogan. We call it pedal, fake pedal, repeat. Right. Or pedal, drink, fake pedal.
Right. That's so funny. Oh, man.
We also have a motor, so, to be able to accommodate people who are maybe physically unable to pedal for 2 hours.
Sure.
Or, maybe they want to bring grandma and grandpa. They don't have to rely on it being pedal-powered the whole time.
Right, so that's great, because you can serve varying folks. It gives you a broader demographic to work with.
And we're still eco-friendly.
That's fun. So what's one of your favorite stories from the party bike?
Oh,
I'm sure you got a whole portfolio.
Yeah, well, there's some that could be slightly inappropriate, but for good laughs, there was a Sunday. I was out, and I don't drive the bike very often. Thankfully, I've got some great staff that do that. But I was out on the town doing a tour, and I was with these hilarious women who were probably in their 50s and 60s.
Was it this past Sunday?
No, this...
Okay, I was going to say.
No, too cold for that. This was
1 degrees.
About a year or two ago. And... so we're parked right outside the Performing Arts Center downtown Appleton, which is across the street from my office. Okay. And the song Pony by Genuine comes on, which, as any ladies listening to the show will know, that is the banner song from Magic Mike. I only know this because, my wife talks about this. And so they asked me to get up and start dancing. And I was, I'm a little more on the conservative side. And I was like, no, I can't do that. So a lady comes up to me and puts $1 in my pocket while I'm sitting there. And, of course, slightly uncomfortable at the time. And then other ladies start telling me, they're like, come on, take your shirt off. And I was like, no, I can't. They're like, oh, start dancing. So, I danced for like 5 seconds. Felt like an eternity. And so another woman comes up and puts $5 or $6 in my pocket. I'm like, come on. They're like, we'll give you 20. And the one's like, I'll give you 20. They were going to give me $40 if I took my shirt off.
Your wife's like, take your shirt off.
I did not, because as a professional who owns a business in downtown Appleton and works downtown Appleton, I couldn't, and I was sober, so it would have taken a lot more than that to convince me. But the funniest part is I go home and I tell my wife, and I was like, oh my gosh, I had these older ladies who were just a hoot. And she's like, oh, what was so great about these ladies? And I said, well, you wouldn't believe this story. So I tell her the story, and she goes, well? I said, well, what? She said, did you take your shirt off? And I said, no, hell no. And she says, come on, you better make that bacon. Lighthearted. So I was like, well, maybe I should have.
Right. I already have some different business ideas for pedal bikes.
Yeah.
Or you could extend your theme offerings.
I could, yeah.
Pedal bike with Magic Mike, right?
Yeah, except I wouldn't be Mike. I would have to hire someone else for that. Far from magical.
That's hilarious, man. Oh, you could sit down with beers and or cigars and you'd have, I would assume, dozens of stories. That's awesome.
Lots of good ones, yeah.
People are people, right?
That's right.
So, but you had success in the pedal bike business, and then it really set you up. You were in a good position so that when opportunity came along, you were in a good position to be able to actually consider it and take hold of it, which is cool.
Yeah. I think that one of the byproducts was, I've had people say, hey, I've seen your marketing, I've seen your bike out there, you are all over the place, and that to me was a bit of an affirmation that hey, I'm doing something right. And it's not just that I'm giving back to the community and providing a great resource and, even donating rides to great nonprofits to help the community make money, but that's what I set out to do, was to create a successful business, but one that provides value to the community. And I was hopeful that through the hard work, people would see that it's a good, well-rounded business with a good reputation. And part of that I know is parlayed into these other business opportunities that are percolating, and it's exciting to know that when you do something right, people recognize it and they appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Hey, this is Kyle. Well done on your decision today to be great. Those are my kiddos in the background. Hey, if you want more of this kind of content, find me on social media. We'll keep the conversation going. You can hit me up on Instagram, Twitter, Facebook, LinkedIn, at StartWithWNTD. Again, at StartWithWNTD. We'll see you there.
I'm going to roll the dice here and say that you probably don't wake up every morning, hoping to be Magic Mike on the pedal bike, right?
Yeah, that's right.
So there's a greater purpose, a greater why. I love the way that Simon Sinek talks about it in his book, something that you do that is inspiring others to something greater, right? And I guess for you, Chris, what is that pulse, that purpose within you, that why that keeps you waking up every morning and continue to go in the direction that you're going?
Yeah, I'd say first of all, individually, just personally, I feel like I have a purpose, both in life and professionally. So I wake up knowing that I'm very blessed to have a wonderful family, and so it's easy to get out of bed with a great attitude and a great mindset, and know that I get to go to work every day and genuinely love what I do. I get to, my day job with BConnected, I'm part of the leadership team, so I get to coach and teach and impact other people, and that's fulfilling to me, knowing that you can do that. And the same thing with my business is that I'm kind of in the fun business with the social station, and to know that people get done with that and they're smiling and they're having a good time, that's another affirmation that you have something that people enjoy. And I think we'll get to that. We're still in the infancy stages with Northern Fleet Solutions, but between that and the book, I know that I can make an impact in people's lives every day. And obviously, I love marketing. I'm passionate about that and social media. So not only can I make an impact, but I know that I'm just a happy individual.
Yeah. I would imagine that so much of that comes from doing work that's fulfilling, and that work is fulfilling because of how you're seeing it impact other people. Is that kind of what I'm hearing?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, it's a lot about what I wrote my book on, was not just seeing the glass as half full or looking at the glass through a rosy-colored lens, but really, happiness is a choice, right? You can choose to be happy. You can choose to be optimistic. You can choose to work hard. And so I've made all those choices, and I know that not only have I worked hard, but I know that I'm a good person. I just want to continue to improve that momentum.
Yeah, that's great. You mentioned that you have a purpose. Which is awesome. What is that purpose? Can you clarify that for us?
That's a tough question. I think I was born to be an entrepreneur, and so because I'm living that life, I'm on my journey. I think it's a lifelong journey. It's starting to percolate. It's been good so far, and there's so much more I want to do that I plan on doing, that I will do. And it's, I would say, more than just a purpose. I see it as being a journey, and because I'm living that out, I feel great, and I'm able to make an impact. So that's why I feel like I have purpose.
Yeah, so you're doing what you're good at, what you enjoy, and a way that you can make money doing it, right? And that's not an evil thing. We want to make money. I think we talked about it in a previous episode about how building wealth or success is a moral obligation, because it implies that we're taking our talents and skills and developing them to the best of our abilities, which is actually ends up being a huge blessing to our families and the world around us, which is a really, really good thing.
Yeah. And there's another thing, too, that I always remind myself of. I had a friend of mine who's, I would say pseudo-mentor at times, and he was a hockey player. He grew up in the hockey world, and he always said to me, he's like, Chris, the game of hockey was good to me. Now it's my time to return the favor. He always used to say, if the game was good to you, it's your turn to be good to the game. Yeah. And I see that a lot with growing up here in the Fox Cities, and the way I translate that is, this community has brought me so much and given me so much, and because I'm at a point in life where I can return the favor, I can give back. I sit on some boards and some different committees through nonprofits in the area, and not only through my business and my general life every day, try to be able to give back as much as I can. Yeah. And that's another way of finding purpose, is adding value and helping and making the community we live in a better place.
Yeah. You're taking the success that you've personally experienced and gained, and then using that to reproduce success in other aspects of life, in other people, in this community. It's a really cool thing.
Yeah,
it's awesome.
Hey, thank you so much for listening. If you haven't already, and only if you think the show deserves it, would you go over to Apple Podcasts and give us an honest, thoughtful 5-star review? This will really help us in our mission to equip the world for success.
Yeah, so for those of you who don't know, I record on my iPhone into GarageBand, and it works out well. I mean, we just have a fun setup here. It's a great mic, built-in compression. I love Apogee. I use it for other music recording and that kind of stuff, but I like this setup because it just, we're here. I call it Kyle style, and these are not usually things I say, on air, but it's a...
Now you do.
Yeah, now I do, right? So this is really the essence of things. It's, hey, let's get a cup of coffee, let's get a beer, let's have a cigar, and just talk, want to hear your story, and see how we can take that and share it with the world, and it's cool. So that's what we're going to do right now. Chris, you've had some great successes of building businesses. You're not content. You want to build more. You want to become more successful, which is awesome. I think everyone should have that drive to continually to be better every day. I love that. So as you're thinking through your life today at 38 years old, as you're looking back over your career, you wouldn't have had some of the successes that you've had if you did everything wrong, right? And then my suspicion is that you've done more right than you did wrong. So why don't you share...
Debatable.
Right. Why don't you share some of those things as you look back that you did right to really help you to get to where you are today?
Yeah, I think I contribute some of the success to my wife. So when starting our social station business, she heard me talk about how I wanted to do this. And it was listening. And then she said, well, if you want to do this, why don't you look into it? Yeah. Which to me was a little bit of a green light. So, of course, I took the initiative and did some research over the course of a couple months. The typical entrepreneur, especially the young green entrepreneur, would say, how can I do this tomorrow? But my wife kind of framed it to where, well, do some research. And it wasn't just calling one company or calling two companies. It was calling manufacturers. It was calling those independent operators who are currently in business and have been. It was talking to consumers, talking to the city officials, meeting with the mayor, meeting with the police chief, creating a business plan, financial projections, and the list goes on and on. And collectively, I probably put in close to a year and a half of research and time and investigation, and it was worth it. I'm glad I did, because the mistakes I had made in the past were rushing into things. And so I think I've had a lot of ideas, as any entrepreneur can say, and it's not uncommon that you have an idea, and if you don't act on it 3 months later, you're like, wasn't that a great of an idea? I'm glad I didn't do that. So I think, not rushing into it was a blessing in disguise. And while, I'd love to go back and say I wish I would have started that a year earlier, I'm glad I spent the time to prepare myself for what I was stepping into, because even if you spend that much time and you think you're 100% prepared, you're always going to be thrown a couple curveballs, especially your first year in business. Yeah. And you want to be best prepared to handle those. And if you put in that amount of time, you should feel pretty well prepared to handle all of that. So I would say to any entrepreneur who, what did I do right? I think taking the time to plan and prepare for your first year of business.
Yeah. Well, and it sounds like the first thing you did right was married right.
Yeah, I would say in anything, if I want to start another business, my wife would say to me, well, what's the business plan? What do the financials look like? And you can't just do that in an hour or overnight. And you got to put the time in to really research to know if this is an opportunity. A, is it profitable? B, does it provide value or enrich people's lives? And C, amongst other questions you could ask, how is the local market or local consumers going to appreciate this? Are they going to embrace it? And every market's different, so you never know.
Yeah, that's so good. And so you had mentioned that you were born to be an entrepreneur. Is this something that when you first met your wife, you guys were dating, or even while you're engaged, are these conversations that you had, like, hey, like, I'd love to be able to start my own business someday? How did that happen?
Yeah, well, she kind of knew because I told her about some of the stories I had from trying to start businesses with friends in the past and how those were unsuccessful. And so she knew what she was getting into when she married this entrepreneur. Yeah.
And we've had this advice given, in previous conversations, but don't marry the wrong spouse. And it's good to marry a good spouse who's excited, right? Because had you, like, let's say your wife was like, "You're stupid, don't do that,"
Well, she thought it was stupid at first. Don't get me wrong.
Sure, but at least she was supportive, and she also gave you really good wisdom, right? Which put you on a trajectory. It kept you from just wanting to make an irrational or impulsive move, and it helped to set you up for success. I think it's interesting because I think that really fits into saying, like, hey, when we're in business, even if our spouse isn't active in the business, directly, they're still part of the business, and they're still part of the success of the business.
Marital law.
Yeah. Well, yeah, there you go.
Yeah.
Right? But even how they're an advisor to us, all that kind of stuff, and if we have kids, they're helping. Even if it's a wife and she's hanging out at home and she's raising the kids, like, that's really important to you as you're out doing your thing, whatever the dynamics might be. So that's really cool. And then, obviously, we talked a little bit before about Dan Kennedy, marketing guy. I really appreciate him. And he kind of said it similar to how you said it, like, hey, if you try to just go find something that you're passionate about and you try to lead with passion over market and market demand, probably not going to go so well. Passion, purpose, and passion are important, but those come out a little bit later. So, like, figure out market demand. And then if it's there, then align that with your purpose and something that you can be passionate about, and that's a good thing. And it sounds like you took the time to be able to do that. Hey, I could really enjoy this. I could be passionate about this, but hey, let's make sure there's a market and a market demand for this before you launch it.
Is there a need? Is there a want? My wife had when we met, one thing that I did, which was, well, many things you could argue, but she had a background in corporate HR, which is something I think any business needs, particularly a startup or a small business. Having experience with human resources is critical, because if you have employees, there's nothing more important than your employees. You could argue your customers, but it starts with good people and a good culture first. Because if you have that, you'll have happy customers.
Yeah, that's good. That's awesome. Well, cool. Yeah, that's just really helpful stuff. Let's pivot into what you did wrong.
Sure. I've probably done a lot of things wrong.
As you're looking over the course of your career, kind of same thing. What are 1, 2, 3 things that just kind of float to the top and say, man, if I could keep someone else from making this mistake, I'd gladly would.
Yeah. So I could give you a couple examples. And I had 2 businesses for sure that I had started, or one I attempted to start that failed. And so the first one was really my first venture. A couple friends and I said, hey, we should start this newspaper. We could create this newspaper, local newspaper, that'd be focused on local sports, and we thought we had an itch. And so we talked about it multiple times, exchanged emails, had meetings, went and started it, created the LLC upon their agreement, and we had a website, and we're starting to create some content. And finally it got to the point, we didn't get very far, but I said, hey, we got to file taxes, and we got to declare zero here, but next year is going to be a great year. And they said, what? This is a real business? And when they found out that there was real responsibility that came with it, that things that weren't very attractive or sexy, they're like, second thought, we don't want to do this. We didn't think you were actually going to go and start this LLC. And I was like, even though you guys said that you wanted me to do it, they're like, yeah, we realize we really don't want to do that work. We don't want to be in sales. We don't want to file taxes. We don't want to do payroll. And so that was one of those things where we were all excited about an idea, and I just went out and did it. And there really was no business plan, formal business plan. There was no financial projections. It's like, we have an idea. We all say we want to do it, and then things change, and that's okay, right? I mean, the water under the bridge. And then a couple of years later, I was like, I'm going to start this T-shirt business, online T-shirts, and I came up with a bunch of artwork and a lot of things that are funny and borderline inappropriate. And I actually sold some T-shirts. I made a couple $1,000s.
Wow.
But in the grand spectrum of things, I probably lost a little bit of money. I gave up on it because I said to myself, can I scale this? Can I make $100,000? And maybe long term, but I didn't see a path for me to be doing this long term or to make more money or make an impact. I didn't see there being an opportunity to enrich people's lives.
Yeah.
And so I said, this is a tough business. There's a lot of competition. It's cutthroat. I can't really be any different than anybody else. And so if I'm going to be white noise, how do you differentiate yourself? How do you stand out? Say that you have a real reputable business that does something. And so I gave up on that, and more from the fact that I just knew I didn't have something that was a real winner. And so I, from there, started writing my book. But I'd say that the big lesson from all those is, A, you can't rush into things. If I compare that to where I am now and spending a year plus doing research and preparation to start a business, there's a stark contrast from the entrepreneur I was then, or wanted to be. I was an entrepreneur then, to the entrepreneur I am now. The second thing is, creating a really thorough business plan and financial projections. You have to know that if you think it's a good idea, that's great. But do other people think this is a good idea? And to go along with that, is there a need and want? Do people actually want your product? And do they need it? Because if there's a need and a want, you might be onto something there.
All right, I want to know, who's next? Who do you want to hear on what not to do? Which entrepreneur, which leader, which public figure in your network do you want to hear on the show? Maybe it's you. Maybe you need to be here. So let's connect me with whomever, and we'll sit down for coffee, a beer, or even a cigar, and together equip the world for success.
So what I would tell any young entrepreneur is, you have an idea, right? And you want to do it tomorrow, or yesterday, like we all do. Typical entrepreneur feeling. Sit on it for a month. Sit on it for 3 months. And if you still think it's a good idea, then do it. But chances are, and I say there's greater than 50% chance, you're going to think back and be like, I'm glad I didn't do that. And if it's really that good, you're going to continue to work on that business plan over the next 3 months, and at that point you'll say, I think I'm ready to do this.
Yeah, that's good. And there comes a point in time where you have to say, you have to do it, right? You have to jump off, you have to take the dive. What you're saying is, don't rush into it, meaning don't count the cost, don't be blindfold, actually know what you're diving into. Right? Yeah. And that's good. And it goes back to your story as far as that kind of due diligence, your wife advising you to research into it. And you took, with the pedal bike, you took almost a year and a half?
Yeah.
And with Northern Fleet, you took...
it was about 9 months in total from the first conversation to the formation of the LLC. Yeah,
right. So not that those are hard and fast timelines that you're saying everyone should take, but it's an example of taking the necessary steps. You met with, for the social station, you met with, you said the mayor, police chief, fire chief. You met with a lot of folks.
Alderman.
Right. Which is huge. And, maybe especially for younger folks that are looking to start a business, they might not be thinking along those ways. What drove you to want to meet with all those people?
Well, I knew that to start that particular business, I'd have to have buy-in from the city. Yeah. And if you don't have buy-in from the city, meaning like the mayor, the alderman, Appleton Downtown Incorporated, the businesses, the police, the fire, that if you do something wrong, it can come back to haunt you. And nobody's perfect, right? Especially in a business where a portion of your customers are consuming alcohol and you're out late at night. You want to be on the same page. You want them to be advocates of yours. And so I knew that if they fully understood what the business was about, it'd be unlikely they'd have objections or concerns. And so I also knew that if I got them all on the same page, understanding what the business is about, that it's not just all about alcohol and partying and being out late at night, that they would approve it. And not only approve it, but being a parent and a husband, I also wanted to know that, if I'm at home on a Friday or Saturday night with my family, that I'm not going to get a call at midnight with there, being issues. And so I want them to know that, we're going to run a tight ship, we're going to do it the right way. And if they see it that way, I think that they'll support it. And that's important to have buy-in, not just do it because you want to do it because you think it's a good idea. And that's true. I had a couple friends that told me it was a bad idea, that it wasn't going to work here. And maybe it worked in Nashville and Twin Cities, but that's different. And that was a different kind of disapproval where that actually fueled me. I said, I'm going to work even harder. I'm going to work harder now because I want to prove you wrong. And that's typical entrepreneur where you've got that fire no matter what.
Yeah, for sure. Oh, man, that's good. And you learn from those earlier mistakes, and then you applied the wisdom with the current business you're having success with. So.
Yeah. I've also learned, too, I could say this, that you got to do things the right way. It's important not to cut corners. If you have rules, you got to reinforce them, follow the laws, because especially when you own a business like this one, doing one thing the wrong way could come back to haunt you.
Yeah.
And if you want to own multiple businesses in the community, or you're active in the community, it's important to build a good reputation. And so from day one, I made the point that I'm going to do things the right way, even if it means it costs a couple dollars more. It's important not to burn bridges.
Yeah, and it's actually how you went about getting the buy-in and approval from a bunch of different city folks and officials. It's actually a sales philosophy, right?
Yeah.
When you're selling into a company, who you might think the decision maker is might not be the only one that has influence into the situation.
Yeah.
How many folks have lost deals on the back end because they didn't actually get the buy-in from everyone that needed to. And so understanding the power base within the company or the organization, and everyone that you need to check in with and have buy-in from in order to help see that your solution that you're selling into there is actually the right one, the good one, and everyone's on board with it, so you don't lose it on the backside.
But it didn't feel like I was selling anybody,
right,
because I truly felt like the business was an asset to the city.
Yeah, for
and,
sure.
thankfully, I think a lot of other people feel that way too.
Exactly, right. And I think anyone in sales wouldn't feel like they would have to sell if they thought that their solution was the right one. And in this sense, what you got right here for sure is the relationship part of it, right?
Yeah.
Not discounting that, not cutting corners onto that. That's awesome. So what else? What's another failure looking back on life and comes at the top?
Oh, that's a tough one. You might have to edit this part out. I have to do some thinking here for a moment. I don't know, honestly. I guess if I had to think more about it, I would say a lot of entrepreneurs are quick to want to start something, but you have to prepare yourself to pivot or to back out, and it's okay. I've had a couple businesses, as I mentioned, that either didn't come to fruition, or I pivoted because I said, I don't really see a path to big success. I didn't want to do that t-shirt business if it was going to take a lot of time and I wasn't going to make a lot of money from it. I also didn't feel purpose or value from selling generic t-shirts, right? And so I made the choice to pivot. When I was writing a book, it took me probably 10 years from the time I started it. I didn't have an agenda for a timeline, I just knew that I wanted to help other people through something I was knowledgeable about, passionate about. And so that concept pivoted probably 4 or 5 times. And because I had moved a couple times, changed careers a couple times, got married, had kids, somewhere in there I found out I had some serious health issues and had cancer of the appendix. And so each time, those life moments happened, I either put the book in the back seat or I looked back and pivoted. And finally one day I said, I've worked on this thing for so long. My wife's like, you either need to publish it or you need to walk away from it completely. And when I was sick, I said, I'd be a total fraud if I said, you gotta have a winning attitude. You gotta make a choice to be happy or not. And everything that you do in life, you're fully responsible for. It's a lot of what the book's about. And I'd be a fraud if I just sat there and was like, well, I can't write the book, And so a lot of the book is about me overcoming the obstacles. And so I decided to publish the book. And it's okay to say that I pivoted, and it took me more than a year to do. And so I think a lot of times, if you're faced with adversity, that's okay. Take a step back, put it in the back seat, pivot if you have to, or throw it away, because as any entrepreneur, you're going to have 3 more ideas next week, right?
Yeah. That reminds me.
And don't be afraid of failure either. I think most people are afraid of what people are going to think.
For sure.
I'm more afraid of not actually executing and being more mad that someone else beat me to it.
You were the first one there, yeah. It reminds me of, have you ever read Seth Godin's book, The Dip?
Yeah.
So I think he kind of talks about a similar concept there where it's like every business is going to have a dip. It's good and right for you to quit if the dip isn't something, if whatever is on the other side of the dip isn't worth it to you to actually make it through the dip. Yeah. And you're saying something similar here where don't be afraid to pivot. Just because you hit a road, everyone, sometimes we say, well, we should finish what we started. And that can often be good advice, but sometimes it's not the right advice either. And in this case, it was for you to finish the book and don't be the fraud and be consistent. And that was a really, really good thing. Yeah. But you're saying there's other things in life where we might come and say, like, look, it's time to quit this one, right? And to pivot and to move on to something that's something better. Am I kind of understanding what you're getting at?
Yeah, and ultimately, I've learned more from the things I haven't done right or the things I failed on than the things I've done right. I've learned more from that. But I actually took something away from the dip, the book, that I've actually kind of created my own that's in my book. And I talk a little bit about, the road of life, the path that you're on, your journey. Everybody's journey and path is a little bit different. But you're going to hit some potholes, right? Just like right now, it's cold, it's winter, there's a lot of potholes out there. Some of them feel like, the car's going to break, right? But you can't get out of the car and check every single time you hit a pothole, right? You have to keep going. And even sometimes you're going to hit some big potholes. You can swerve, right? You can react to that. But the big thing is you got to keep going, especially when you're going from point A to point B. You don't have time to get out and look. And, cars are built to withstand that wear and tear. And so ultimately, it's not important. It's in the past. You can't drive looking in the rearview mirror. And you can't go through life looking in the rearview mirror either. And so when you get those potholes, you just keep going. Because we've all hit many, and some people we've hit multiple in a day. But you know what? Tomorrow's a new day.
Yeah, that's right.
And good news is the sun is shining.
And it will tomorrow, hopefully.
Well, maybe not in Wisconsin, but yeah.
Well, it is one of my main goals to give you more in use value than what I take from you in cash value. And so, man, I love that this podcast is for free. And I really hope that you are finding just incredible value. Who knows, maybe in one of these episodes, you'll take an idea that will be worth $1 million to you. And that's so awesome. If you believe in this and what we're doing here and you'd like to give, you can go to patreon.com/whatnotttodo and you can give according to your heart's desire. But seriously, every little bit helps in our mission to equip the world for success. Thank you so much.
All right, man, so what do you think? How would you counsel younger Chris, or looking back over your career, how would you, if you could be given the chance, what would you do differently? And assuming that we're going to take that and parlay it into helping others avoid those same mistakes?
Yeah, so I would probably tell the younger version of me, in some ways I wish I would have gotten started with this entrepreneurial thing sooner in life, because the sooner I would have learned, the sooner I would have started, maybe the sooner I would have gotten to where I am now.
Yeah.
But you can't look back, as I said, so yeah, I'm very happy with the journey that I've been on. But I think I would have told myself to start saving more money, because as any entrepreneur, I don't think you don't need crowdfunding, you don't necessarily need angel investing, you don't need startup money, but if you do little things right, like Gary Vaynerchuk always talks about garage sailing and flipping things on eBay, there are a lot of ways to create money and to make money that you can use to start your business. And there's a lot of ways that you can parlay small businesses like I have into something bigger and bigger over time.
Yeah.
And while I'm pretty early in that journey, I think I would have wished that I better understood that. You don't need an app to have $1 million idea. And you also don't need $1 million idea to be a happy, successful entrepreneur.
Yep.
That $1 million is not a benchmark. Only you can define what you need to be happy, what you need to live, and what you need to be successful. And sometimes it's just one small seasonal business that puts a smile on people's face. That is the definition of happiness. And so, ultimately, I would tell myself too that what happens in your life is up to you. You are 100% responsible for everything that happens to you, everything that you do. And so it's no one's fault that you didn't get a promotion but yours. It's no one's fault that you didn't start a business sooner. And I think if you have that mentality that at the end of the day, what you make out of your life or what you made out of your life is fully responsible. You're fully responsible for it. So that's what I would try to instill, some wisdom, rather than telling the younger self what to do.
What are you guys doing right now?
Yeah, that's good. That's helpful. I especially like. Yeah, so it's starting sooner, because I guess if you think about it like in micro and macro iterations, like in building a business, you think of it like it's an iterative process, right? And product 1.0 might not be product 2.0, but that's intentional. And this is especially popular like in the tech world, etc. But I also think that there are aspects of this, or this principle of iteration in life from a macro perspective, where wherever we start on our journey, we're iterating, we're figuring out what's working for us and what's not, what success is for us and what it's not. And you're saying, had you started that process earlier, that would have been helpful.
Yeah.
It doesn't mean that you'd have achieved success, by your definition earlier, but you might have, right? And so what you'd encourage is someone, don't wait on that. If that's what you want to take, start on it sooner. You're going to have your failures, you're going to make mistakes, but that process of a macro iteration for your own life and your own journey is really, really important.
Yeah.
And then I especially like what you said about being 100% responsible. I think about that in my own life, right? Like no one else is coming along, right?
Yeah.
There's no excuses. Don't wait for somebody else, Kyle. Right? You go figure it out and go do it. Reach out. Whatever you need to do. Especially with the resources we have available today. This is one of 750,000 podcasts. Many of them, giving such helpful advice. Or you've got Google. You got so much out there. You've got communities of folks that are willing to help invest and pair people together, and it's amazing. So yeah, there's no excuses. You have to take responsibility for yourself and for the course of your life.
I think I'd probably also tell myself this is nobody's looking out for you but you. And I can say this while also saying simultaneously that, and I'm blessed to have a lot of great people in my life, from friends and family and colleagues. But ultimately, I would say, Chris, if you want that promotion, if you want to start that business, if you want to get married, if you want to travel, whatever it is that you want, it's up to you. So you have to tell your boss that you want a promotion. You have to plant the seed. It's up to you to do those things. And while, yes, there are some promotions that are just given, people don't go around just assuming things in life. Not always. And so if you want something, you got to ask for it. You got to take it. You got to earn it. And you got to put in the time and effort to get it.
Yeah, that's so good. Yeah, I've heard it said in another way of no one cares. In a sense, no one's looking out for you. Everyone has their own journey, their own lives, their own families. And if we kind of, that helps us to keep us humble. Not everyone's thinking about us all the time.
Yeah.
And then like exactly what you're saying. That's so good. Yeah, that's awesome.
Well, I'm really excited to share with you that What Not to Do has been gaining traction and momentum and experiencing some early wins, which is super exciting, and reminded me this show is about you, it's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. So thank you so much. If you're part of a company, if you own a company, and you think your message would be really, really relevant and valuable to the folks that are part of this community, entrepreneurs, leaders, public figures, and those aspiring as such, reach out to me. My contact info is in the show notes, and we can sit down and consider what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for success.
All right, man. So we're all shaped in life, and I like to say inescapably so. Right? Sometimes we're aware of what's shaping us, sometimes we're not. Right?
Yeah.
Obviously, people are a huge part of that. So I'm curious in your life, who has been someone, probably many people, but someone that comes to mind, that you would say that you wouldn't be where you are today without them. Who is that someone that has had that kind of impact on your life?
Well, it's interesting. I don't know that I've ever really had a mentor, I've been kind of given one in a few stages of my life that I don't think really were mentors or wanted to be. So unfortunately, I can't say that I ever really had one. But really, the person who's instilled the most wisdom in my life, who's in some cases brought me down back to earth a few times, is my wife, for sure. And given me some really good clarity on things that kind of challenges me directly, and asks thought-provoking questions and get me to think about, if I want to start a business, is this really something I want to do? Do I really have time to do this? And kind of brings the most important things in life is, how does that impact our family?
Yeah.
Which are questions when you're a 21-year-old entrepreneur you don't think about, right? So, that's kind of where I am with mentors, but where I've gained a lot of advice are through people like Marcus Lemonis and Simon Sinek and guys and gals from Shark Tank. Marcus Lemonis is one of my favorites, from a guy who does things the right way. I mentioned that earlier on in the show. He has a show on CNBC called The Prophet that really just breaks things down. He does things the right way, truly cares about people, and the model that he has, where he invests in businesses that support his other businesses, is one that I have a lot of respect in, and hope maybe someday I can have a portfolio nowhere near half the size, but in a way kind of like his.
Hey, why not? If he can do it, you can do it. Right?
Yeah.
That's awesome. That's good, and that brings a good point. Have you ever met Marcus or met Simon Sinek?
I haven't met any of those people. Or Gary Vaynerchuk is one of my favorites.
Yeah.
And I'd love to. I don't think I need to. I've read their books, listened to their podcasts, follow them on social media, and it gives me that daily fuel I need to keep me going.
Yeah, and that's an amazing thing. And books have been around for however many millennia. But if you're out there, if you're listening to this and you're like, I don't have that mentor, I don't have that coach, I don't have that teacher, I don't have that boss who's taking a special interest in me, whatever it is, you don't need it, right? What you need to do is take ownership. And like Chris is here, he's found guys that he's learning from that have been impactful in his formation and have shaped him. That's huge. You've never met these guys, and yet you're attributing your success today to them, which is awesome.
Yeah.
Cool. Okay, so fun question. You've probably gotten a lot of really, really good advice from the aforementioned, but I'm not interested in good advice. I want to know what is some of the worst advice that you either hear floating around today, or maybe that you're given some way along your journey.
Yeah,
cringeworthy advice.
Some of the dumbest things I've heard people say is that social media is a fad, and you should invest in magazines and billboards and traditional media. Well, jokingly, I do think that there's a place for traditional media, and for some industries it could be better than digital. I would argue that there's no better place than digital. But the interesting thing about advice people have given me directly, most of it I've forgotten or suppressed, because honestly, I have this kind of philosophy with my wife and I call people who are negative energy zombies. So if someone's going to give me advice because something didn't work for them, or they had a bad experience, or they don't believe in me, I kind of take that and I turn that into positive energy. And so while I've had a ton of bad advice and I've heard a lot of dumb things said, and I've probably said some dumb things myself, I'm sure I have, I really compartmentalize it and push it in the back of my mind, and that's the type of stuff that fuels me.
And you call it a negative energy zombie?
Energy zombies. So
Energy zombies.
We all have them. And sometimes they come in the form of friends, sometimes they're family, sometimes they're colleagues or a boss. But if you have people who either don't believe in you, don't trust you, are just negative, talk down about other people, I try to surround myself with other people who are go-getters, who have energy or positive, who are optimistic, because that's who I am, and that's what I feed off of. And so when I get around people like that, it's one thing to challenge somebody, but if they're going to constantly give bad advice and have negativity, we classify them as energy zombies, and nobody has any time for that. It kind of just like sucks all the energy out of you and brings you down. And so, there's no energy zombies in my life.
That is such a good picture, man. It's really people that are trying to justify why they gave up on themselves, and they literally are the proverbial walking dead, right? And so that term of energy zombies is like perfect. It's awesome.
So let's say you have someone in your life who maybe has gone through some medical issues, and they come to you and they tell you about it, but it's the doctor's fault. It's the doctor's fault that he or she didn't go to the doctor 6 months ago when they were having issues. It's the doctor's fault that you still have pain. It's the doctor's fault that you chose not to go to physical therapy 2 weeks ago when you were supposed to. And it's the doctor's fault for everything else. When, like I said before, you are 100% in control of your life. You're 100% responsible for your current state of health in 99% of the cases. And sometimes we're just dealt a bad card, obviously. And I've been dealt some myself.
Sure.
You don't know you have cancer until the doctor tells you and takes it out of your body in some cases, like me. But I think ultimately energy zombies, eliminate them from your life. But you hear that and you're like, it's not the doctor's fault. It's not your boss's fault. It's not your neighbor's fault. It's your fault in most cases. And so do something about it. And you can choose, if it's a family member or a colleague, to keep those people at arm's length.
Yeah, that's so good. Beware the energy zombies.
That's right. They're lurking.
They're coming. Oh, man. Sounds like, Oh.
And I've had plenty, so I'm really good at combating them, keeping them away.
Right. They're behind you right now. All right, man. It's rush hour in every major city in the world. Billions of people listening to this episode with Chris Burns on what not to do, right? Gleaning amazing life wisdom. And they're naturally in a traffic jam, and they look out their window and they see a billboard, and wouldn't you know it, it's Chris Burns' billboard. What message do they see?
What message do they see? I don't know. I feel like I've probably given you a couple of my pieces of wisdom.
It's your fault.
Yeah. No, I mean, I like to try to phrase things in more of a positive way.
Yeah.
But I like to think positively, like just do it. I know that's a Nike thing, or you can do it. The question I always ask people is, why not? Why aren't you doing this? What's holding you back? And that'd be the question I'd want to ask people on a bit, like, what's holding you back? You want to start a business? And then it's like, well, I don't have time. Well, and I'm going to say, well, I'll tell them what I do, which is I go home at night after my kids are in bed. I've got my laptop on my lap probably 2 or 3 nights a week, and I'm hammering away for 2 hours before I go to bed. It's like, well, instead of binge watching something on Netflix, I'm doing that while I'm watching the Bucks game. And so, what's holding you back? Why not? I don't have time. Yes, you do. I'm tired. Okay, well then go to bed earlier. Have a better diet. Don't drink soda. What can I tell you? So that's what why not? And usually you're met with some lame excuses, right?
Yeah.
From energy zombies, probably.
From energy zombies, which you might be an energy zombie yourself.
You could be, but you can change that. That's the good news. It's not hard.
That's good, man. That's a good question to ask ourselves, right? At the end of the day, why not? I've heard it said something like the pain of rejection is better than the pain of regret. Meaning you'd rather try and fail than have never tried at all. And I think it seems like a lot of people, or at least as the story goes, near the end of their lives just say, hey, I wish I would have done this. I wish I would have tried this. And what you're saying and what you're wanting to inspire in people is, yeah, why not? What is that thing that you're wanting to do? Why shouldn't you be doing it? Why not?
Yeah. And if you told me why not, and you had a valid reason, you said, well, I did some research and I found out that this takes, $500,000 and I don't have that. And I also am not sure that it's going to be sustainable. And I'd say, okay, great, you did the research. That's why not. Yeah. You have a good reason for it. Let's move on to the next thing then.
Why not something else?
Exactly.
That's awesome. All right, man, bonus round. Books that you would highly recommend to folks. So they could be top 3 books or just 3 books that you're reading and 3 books that our listeners need to have on their bookshelf.
That is a great question. I've read a lot of books. I'll give you a couple that I like. I think anything from Gary Vaynerchuk is really good. And he's got, I think, 4 or 5. So instead of giving you a title, I would say he's got one called The Thank You Economy, Crushing It. Those are a few that I really enjoyed. I kind of compartmentalize them. I kind of put them all into one category.
Yeah.
I read one called Rework, which is really more about reverse engineering. Rework.
Is that Gary Vee?
No, that one, I'm not sure who wrote that offhand, but I really enjoyed that.
Cool. Okay.
Some of the best books I've read more recently was a book by David Goggins called Can't Hurt Me. And the story and some of the adversity that he went through life is absolutely amazing. Former Navy SEAL, and basically just says that if you think you're dealing with some shit in life and you've been through adversity, you've been through nothing after you hear his story. And some of the things that he went on to achieve in life were just absolutely incredible. And then, of course, being a marketing guy, I could probably give you 10 or 12 others, but one that I thought recently was really good was a book by Jonah Berger called Contagious. And the tagline for that is, will it catch on? It's really a story about how brands have built products and marketing campaigns and messages that have connected with people and why they've connected. So why people choose to make an action to buy a product or not buy a product. And basically it's kind of consumer behavior as it relates to marketing. And I've always been fascinated with why consumers choose to make a decision to buy something or not buy something. Why a product that I think is really good, really cool, or a TV show that was really good didn't work. And that's a great book for other marketing minds, especially if you're starting a business and you want to know, like me, it's always like name and logo. You got to get it just right. And that'll really give you some inspiration as to connecting the dots between messaging, logo, branding, and to your consumer group. And there's a lot more than that, but those are a few that I would recommend off the top of my mind.
Yeah, those are awesome.
Anything by Seth Godin, Gary Vaynerchuk's good.
I want to get those on my bookshelf. Cool. Chris has been awesome, man. Yeah, such a good time, such a good conversation. It's been huge for me. I hope our listeners have been really, really helped by this. If they they want to reach out to you and connect with you, either personally, learn from you, do business with you, where can they find you?
Yeah, well, connect with me personally on LinkedIn. I'm on LinkedIn almost every day. It's one of my favorite social media platforms. Any one of my websites, from socialstationwi.com or northernfleetsolutions.com. Shoot me an email or find me through LinkedIn, however you want.
That's the email for you.
info@socialstationwi.com. Or any one of my websites, you can find my contact information. I love having conversations like this, but I always kind of cringe when it's all about me. So next time we get together, I get to interview you, even if it's not with a microphone.
Hey, let's do it, man. That'd be awesome. Well, we'll have that in the show notes, so if you guys want to connect with Chris, do it. We'll have books, and we'll have Chris's book as well in the show notes, too, so you can pick up yourself a copy and learn about what golf can teach you about life. Awesome, Chris. This has been great. Thank you so much.
Thanks, Kyle.
Yeah.
Appreciate it.
Great conversation with Chris. He's doing some really cool stuff in the area and connected with a lot of different folks doing cool stuff in the area. So if you guys want to get in touch with Chris, check out the show notes, reach out to him, connect with him on social media, do business with him, buy him a cup of coffee. It'll be awesome. Good guy to get to know. But let's recap what he told us not to do. First, don't rush into things. Don't rush into things. You heard this early in his story where he had learned from his failures, and a huge part of that learning process was having a good spouse, right? His wife was there to help give some good wisdom. So marry up, marry right? But don't rush into things. Do the due diligence, have the business plan, the financial projections, the demand, the counsel around you to help you make good decisions, and check your blind spots, right? Huge. So don't just rush into things. An idea is not a plan, not the same thing. Secondly, don't cut corners, right? So for instance, just because your mom thinks it's going to be a massive success doesn't mean you actually have market demand, right? Your mom is not the market. That should seem pretty basic, but I don't know. You hear crazier things, right? Just talk to Justin Seidel. It's going to make tons of money, right? Don't cut corners, right? Be thorough in your research. Measure twice, cut once. Get the help that you need. Get the expertise where it's needed, etc. Be really thorough about it. And last but not least, don't be afraid to pivot. Don't be afraid to pivot. Seth Godin, great book called The Dip. Every business is going to have low points, valleys, and align yourself with a business or opportunities or ventures that it will be worth it to you to push through that dip, right? If you find yourself in a business or venture where it's not worth it to you to push through the dip, you know what's on the other side of that dip, you could care less about. Quit, right? Be free and quit. You heard it here. Quit, right? It's okay to quit. Just quit the right thing and go get into something that'll be worth it to you to stick it through all the hardships, the dips, the valleys, etc. Well, thank you so much for listening. Man, this podcast is about you. It's for you, and I couldn't do it without you. If you've been helped by this, and I hope you have, let me know. I'd love to hear feedback from you, whether comments on social media or shoot me a personal note, message me on LinkedIn, email, etc. And share this with a friend, right? Share this with somebody else, your network, someone that you think would be really helped by this. A great way you can do that is give us a 5-star review on Apple Podcasts or wherever you listen. Your favorite streaming platform would be great. And if you want to be on the show, right, or someone you'd like on the show, also reach out to me. Let's sit down and let's get them on, right? And if you are a company and you think you would have a really relevant or valuable product or service or message for what we're doing here, and again, not everyone would be a great fit, but if you think you'd be a really good fit and bring a lot of value to what we're doing here, I'm sure our listeners and our guests would love that, and I would too. So reach out to me, let me know, and let's see what it would look like to partner together in equipping the world for success. Well, it's been said that good men learn from their own mistakes, but great men, they learn from the mistakes of others. So go and be great, and we'll see you next time.